William Harper sat at a large oak desk in his office. On the table were documents waiting for his signature. It was not just a decision, but a whole chapter of his life that was coming to an end. He ran his hand over the paper, where it was written in black and white, "Donation of funds for the development of the St. Mary's community. This is the right choice," he said to himself. William has worked tirelessly all his life. He started from scratch, he worked in his father's workshop, then started his own business. Over the years, he managed to accumulate millions of dollars. But looking at his achievements, he felt that it was all just material things. His wife, Mary, always supported his idea of helping others. She often said, "William, we are only here for a moment. What we leave behind is our true legacy." Mary passed away 10 years ago, but her words have remained in his heart forever. The decision to give money to the church was a natural step for William. He had seen how the church helps people, organizes shelters for the homeless, feeds the hungry, and supports young people. This is what Mary would have wanted, he thought as he signed the documents. But despite his confidence in his choice, William knew that his children would not like this decision. And he had 2 sons and a daughter, Michael, who ran his own firm, Jason, a university professor, and Emily, who was a stay-at-home mom raising 3 children. William loved them, but their relationship had always been difficult. His children were used to the idea that one day they would inherit everything he had earned. "They won't understand," he whispered as he signed his last will and testament. News of William's decision to donate his life savings to the church spread faster than he expected. It all started with a phone call from his youngest son, Jason. "Dad, what are these rumors? They say you're going to leave all your money to the church. Is it true?" Jason's voice was sharp and tense. William tried to speak calmly. "Yes, it's true. I have already signed the documents. It's a decision I made after much thought." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Jason spoke, and his voice was full of indignation. "You didn't even consult us, your children. How could you do this? We are your family." A few hours later, Emily arrived at William's house. She didn't even have time to take off her coat before she started talking. "Dad, is this a joke? Do you want to leave us with nothing? You have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. We were all counting on that money." William raised his hand to stop her. "Emily, this is not a joke. I have decided that this money is better used to help those who really need it. You all have your own lives and resources." Emily was outraged. "Resources? Do you even realize how hard it is to raise 3 children? And how will it look in front of everyone when people find out that you left us without an inheritance?" Later that day, all 3 children gathered at William's house. Michael, the eldest son, was particularly blunt. "Dad, this decision is not only unfair but humiliating for us. We are your children. Shouldn't you have put us first?" William, though disturbed by their reaction, tried to remain firm. "I gave you everything I could. I raised you, educated you, helped get on your feet. But this is my money, and I have the right to decide how to use it." The conversation quickly turned into a quarrel. The children expressed their disappointment and resentment, and William, despite all his attempts to explain his motives, felt that his words were falling on deaf ears. At one point, Emily stood up and said, "If you've decided to give your money to strangers, then you probably don't need a family anymore." These words struck William. He silently watched her leave the room, slamming the door. Michael and Jason also left the house without saying goodbye. William was left alone in silence, trying to realize what had just happened. That evening, he sat in his study looking through old photographs. In one of the pictures, all of his children were still young. Emily smiling in a pink dress, Michael holding a model airplane, and Jason hugging them both. When did all this change? He asked himself. William couldn't sleep. His decision had seemed right, but now he began to wonder if it was really worth the loss of his relationship with his children. William's house, which had always been full of life, now seemed hopelessly quiet. With his children gone, he was left alone with his thoughts. In the silence, he felt loneliness envelop him like a heavy blanket. That evening, William sat in the armchair by the fireplace for a long time, thinking about what happened. His hand shook as he held a cup of tea. On the table was a family photo album that he hadn't opened in a long time. William flipped through the pages, looking at pictures taken many years ago. Here was Michael, still a baby, sitting on his shoulders during a hike in the park. Here was Jason, proudly displaying his college diploma. And here was Emily on her wedding day, beaming with happiness. How could it all end like this? He asked himself. His thoughts turned to Mary, his late wife. She had always been the one who kept the family together. Her gentle voice and warm embrace could melt any ice. Mary, if you were here, you would know what to say. You would help me find the right path, he whispered, looking at her portrait on the wall. The next day, William decided to leave home. He went to the local church, where they were already waiting for him. A young Reverend John, a young and energetic man, always knew how to find the right words. "Mr. Harper, how are you today?" he asked when William entered the office. William shook his head. "Not really, Father. My children, they have abandoned me. They don't understand why I decided to give my money to the church." The priest listened carefully. "Your donation will help many people, Mr. Harper, but I can see that this decision is difficult for you." Difficult? I have lost my family. They don't want to talk to me anymore," William replied. John thought for a moment, then said, "You have made what you believe is the right choice, but perhaps it will take time for your children to understand. Sometimes we expect people to accept our decisions immediately, but pain often clouds understanding." John's words made William think. Did his children really feel pain? Or was their resentment just greed? That evening he wrote letters to each of his children. "Dear Michael, Jason, and Emily, I know my decision has upset you. But please understand I did this not because I don't love you, but because I want to leave you with something more than money. If you're ready to talk, I'll always be waiting for you in our home. With love, Dad." And didn't send the letters right away. William hesitated. He was afraid his children would simply ignore his attempts at reconciliation. The days passed slowly. William spent time at church, helping organize charity events. But even among people, he felt his heart remain empty. One day on his way home, he stopped by his old garage. There was still the car he and his sons had repaired years ago. William ran his hand along the hood, remembering how Michael and Jason had argued over who would get behind the wheel first. These memories brought tears to his eyes. "I wanted to leave you with more than just money. But maybe I didn't realize what you really needed," he said aloud, addressing his absent children. After weeks of silence and reflection, William decided he could no longer remain aloof. The loneliness was hard, but it was even harder to live with the feeling that he had lost touch with those he loved most. He began to spend more time at church, participating in charity events. This gave him some comfort. But even among people, he felt isolated. One day, the priest John approached him after Sunday service. "Mr. Harper, I can see that you are thinking a lot. Maybe I should share my feelings." William took a deep breath and replied, "Father, I feel that my decision was the right one for the community, but I lost the most precious thing, my children. They don't understand why I did it, and now I'm all alone." John listened carefully, then asked, "Did you explain to them why you made this choice? Did you talk about your motives with them the way you're talking to me now?" William thought about it. He realized that at the time of the argument with the children, his emotions had overpowered his words. Instead of explaining his actions, he had simply been defensive. "Maybe I wasn't being honest enough," he said. "Then maybe it's time to be honest. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, but that doesn't mean they don't need it," John replied. William decided to give it a try. He started with a small step, inviting Jason, his youngest son, to dinner. Jason hesitated at first, but then he agreed. At the table in the cafe, William could feel the tension in the air. Jason, I know you're mad at me," he began. "Dad, I just don't understand why you did this. You always said that family was the most important thing. But now it seems like we're not important to you," Jason replied. William took a deep breath. "I understand why you think this. But listen to me. I didn't make this decision because I didn't love you. I did it because I wanted to leave something more than just money. Your mother always said that we should share what we had. That was her wish, and I wanted to honor her memory. Jason thought about it, but said nothing. A few days later, William got a call from Emily. Although her voice was cold, but she agreed to come to his house to talk. "Dad, I'm still mad at you, but I want to understand why you think the church deserves this money more than we do," she said. Emma, this conversation was even more difficult than the one with Jason. Emily openly accused William of betraying his family. But he patiently explained his motives, his desire to help those in need, and how it related to the values and he was trying to instill in his children, though Emily left without giving him an answer. But William could feel her heart beginning to open up. He continued to work with the community, but now his goal was not only to help others, but also to find a way to reconcile with the children. Inevitable one day, Reverend John said to him, "Mr. Harper, I can see how difficult it is for you. But remember, forgiveness is a process that takes time. Sometimes we have to start by forgiving ourselves." These words made William think. He realized that his pain was not only because of the conflict with his children, but also because of his own doubts. Had he done the right thing? Had he made the right choice? Several weeks had passed since William had begun to reconnect with his children. The conversations were difficult, but each one had left a small glimmer of hope. Amanoa but knew that true reconciliation would take more than just one-on-one meetings. William decided to bring the whole family together. It was a risky idea, since their last conversation had ended in an argument. But he felt he had to try again. One evening he called Michael, the oldest son who had been the most distant. "Michael, I know you don't want to talk to me, but it's really important to me that we all get together. I want to explain my point of view to you. This may be the last conversation we'll have, but I don't want to leave things as they are." Michael was silent for a long time, but finally he said, "Okay, Dad. But I'm only coming to listen to you." William invited the children to his house for dinner. He spent a long time getting ready, trying to find the right words. His house was meticulously cleaned, the table decorated with the old dinnerware they always used for family celebrations. As everyone gathered, the tension in the air was palpable. Michael sat with his arms crossed, Jason avoided eye contact, and Emily looked reserved but wary. William stood up, holding a glass of water. "I know you're angry with me, and I understand why. You think I chose strangers over you. But I didn't. Let me tell you why I made this choice." He began to talk about his life with Mary, how they built their business together, how they decided to always help others. He remembered how Mary, even when she was sick, found time to volunteer at her church. "It was our shared dream to leave the world better than we found it. When she left, I felt like I had to continue what we had started together." The children listened silently, but emotion began to appear in their eyes. "I understand that you were expecting something different, and I admit that I should have talked to you sooner. But I want you to know my decision was not directed against you. I always wanted you to be happy and self-sufficient. You are my greatest achievement." Emily was the first to break the silence. "Dad, I understand that you wanted to do something important, but it was hard for us to accept. We thought you were pushing us away." Michael added, "Maybe I was too harsh, but I didn't want to make you feel like we were secondary." Jason, who usually kept to himself, said, "Dad, I still don't agree with your choice. But listening to you, I can see that it really was important to you and to Mom. Maybe we need more time to understand that." This conversation was the first step toward reconciliation. William felt that there was still tension between them, but it also opened up an opportunity for dialogue. The evening ended with an unexpected gesture. Emily hugged William before leaving. "Dad, I want us to try to start over," she said. William was left alone in his house, but this time he felt not emptiness, but hope. The next morning after the family dinner, William woke up with a strange feeling. For the first time in a long time, there was no bitterness or disappointment in him. Instead, he felt something like relief. The day began with the usual things: a cup of coffee, a morning walk in the garden, but thoughts of yesterday evening did not leave him. "We have taken the first step," he thought. William knew that it would not be easy to completely restore the children's trust. The wounds they had inflicted on each other were too fresh. But now a dialogue had opened between them, and this gave him hope. That day, William decided to call the priest John. "Father, I wanted to thank you for your advice. Last night, for the first time in a long time, I felt that our family could be restored," he said. John replied, "That is wonderful news, Mr. Harper. But remember, reconciliation is a process. The most important thing is to remain honest and open." After the conversation, William decided to do something he had been putting off for a long time. He opened the same photo album he had looked through in his lonely moments, but this time it wasn't to be sad. He chose a few photos that reminded him of the happiest moments of their family life, a trip to the lake, Christmas dinner, Emily's first birthday. He decided to write a letter to his children, but this time it wasn't about his decision or about money. It was a letter about love. "Dear Michael, Jason, and Emily, thank you for coming yesterday. Nuku, and I know we have a long way to go, but I believe we can do it together. I want you to know that everything I do is out of love for you and for the world around us. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I am proud of each and every one of you. Yours forever, Dad." William dropped off the letters in the mail and returned home. A few days later, the kids started calling. Emily invited him to dinner. Michael suggested they go to his grandson's play together, and Jason wrote that he wanted to show him his new book. William knew these were small steps, but they were important. One evening, sitting on his porch, William reflected on his life. "I made a hard choice. I lost and found at the same time. I may not have been a perfect father, but I always wanted my children to be happy. If it takes them time to understand that, I will wait." If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel. We tell stories about real life, full of difficult choices and big emotions. Together we will find answers to the most important questions.